Well, good evening, everyone. We're live once again, coming to you from Dallas, Texas. I'm Miranda Innes. Welcome to another edition of Swerve with Me, show where we have adult conversations for mature audiences only. And it's always a pleasure to bring to this platform people who have overcome challenges and they're not afraid to show their scars and to speak their truth. And tonight, I have yet again one of those persons. I call him my birthday twin. We're
Yeah.
on July 21st, but I'm a few years older than her, but that's okay. But I love this woman's personality. I've watched her, what she's doing to help to bring others into to a becoming and a knowing of their own true selves as well. She's known as the limitless coach, but in addition to that, she's an HR professional. She's a hospitality professional. She's a former educator. She's a jazz worship leader. She's a musician. The way how she used it as just Simone, the multi-gifted, multi-talented woman that has emerged and it continues to emerge in the world. This is the person that I want to present to you tonight and introduce to others, Simmone Bowe. I just heard a little feedback there, but she is
Yeah.
such an amazing person. And tonight I want to take you on a journey. We're going to take you on a journey of her life in some aspects, and the whole purpose of this is to really help somebody else grow, to help somebody move beyond where they are to really finding themselves or to avoid some of the pitfalls and mistakes that we may have made in our lives, and subsequently you may not have to do the same thing. And so help me welcome to this platform tonight, Simmone Bowe. Simmone, is so good to have you with me.
It's so good to be here with you, Miranda. We've been talking about this for a while, so I'm glad that we finally made it happen.
We made it happen. Absolutely nothing before its time.
Exactly.
Simone is one of those gifted Bahamians and a person that I want to say, from all aspects, was brought up and raised in what we would call an affluent family. She went to one
Yeah.
of the better schools, perhaps in some people's estimation, the best school, private school that is in the country. She went to St. Andrews, which is a school that is, or perhaps was at the time she attended, predominantly Caucasian, of course.
Yeah.
But so she comes from a background that's rich. I only mention that to say it's a rich background, a cross sector of persons, and she's always been exposed to peoples and different cultures. And so when we talk a little later about the adventure that she would have taken subsequently, you'll understand why perhaps she's more risque than others among us. But Simone, this could be fun, okay? It's gonna be fun.
Oh, Lord.
But it won't be harmful. It won't be harmful. I promise. I promise. Simone, in the midst of the laughter and the big personality you have, and all the things that you've experienced in life, you experienced some childhood trauma that for many people would have crippled them. What it has for some people. I did some research about childhood trauma, and it said that
Yeah.
there were three major things that happens to some people, and this is not everybody across the board, but as a result of childhood trauma, some people experience a lot of stress and chronic illnesses that come out of that, and they don't even realize it. Some people tend to suppress memories of what has happened because they didn't want to face what has happened to them, and then others again just go on and pretend as if nothing actually happened. But we all know that whatever we experience in life, it comes back to bite us if we don't confront it. And so at a very early age, coming from a very privileged background, despite all of the structure, the loving family, the support system that was in place for you, something very traumatic happened to you very young. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So when I was 6 years old, I was molested by my sister's boyfriend. and it went on for a period of time. And you were so right in that a lot of times people think that childhood trauma comes from people who grow up in a single family home or may grow up in a less than favorable neighborhood or something like that. But trauma and pain and abuse can happen anywhere. There's no discrimination for it. And so at that age, you know, you don't really understand what's going on. You don't know what it is. You don't know what's happening. And at that, the first time that it happened, my sister had left me home with him, you know, innocently, not thinking that, you know, he was going to try anything. And, you know, as that went on, he would threaten me, you know, and shake his fist at me and say, you know, if you tell anybody what's going to happen to you and that type of thing. So it just became this big, dark, dirty secret that I didn't even know was a big, dark, dirty secret. It was just something that I was afraid and I needed to keep to myself.
Did you, in hindsight now, going back, is there anything in particular that you can remember? Excuse me, y'all. Somebody's trying to call me. Okay. Is there anything in particular that you can recall now that would give somebody a clue, a tip in terms of what a predator looks like? Because you're 6 years old, and this person was prior to the actual act. Was there anything that he did or portrayed, if you can even remember, that
None at all.
Tip? Nothing at all.
Nothing at all. Because whenever I was around him, I was with my sister was present. You know, so this was the first time that we would have been alone.
At the very first time you were alone, he took advantage of you.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. So subsequently, how many years did that go on? And what was the point that you found the courage, or did your family members suspect that even something may have been going on with you?
No, there was actually nothing untoward. Like I said, I kept the secret based on the threats that I got. And so this went on for a couple of years. And in a matter of fact, before I even told my family of that was going on, there was another gentleman in the picture, someone who my dad used as a mechanic who would come to the house, you know, people who do those mobile services. Mm-hmm. And he would come to the house to repair my parents' vehicles and service them and all of that sort of thing. And so probably about a year after this started, this guy also molested. Not all the way, but made moves. And
right.
Yeah, I mean, and like I'm saying, a grown man, right? And by this time now, I'm probably about 7. And so that was a one-time situation. And then, like I said, with my sister's boyfriend, that kind of went on for a couple of years, like maybe a year after that. And then my mom took me for a checkup, and I was having issues actually with the swimming pool at school. And it was giving me.
Pause to ask you, at what age was that your mom took you for this checkup?
I was about 10 at this point.
Okay.
And for whatever reason, the doctor must have asked her to ask me if, you know, I was maybe sexually active or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so my mom asked me, you know, did anyone ever try to take my panties down? That's what she asked me. And I was terrified at this point, but I knew that this was my do or die moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I told her, I said yes. And I told her who. And we drove immediately to my sister, who was distraught. And she was like, why did you say something? Mm-hmm. And that later that night, they had a meeting with him to confront him about it. And after they met with him and they called me into the room, And of course, he denied it. And then I got hysterical because I'm like, that's not true. It's, this is true. He's lying, blah, blah, blah. So they shooed me out of the room. They finished the meeting and I never saw him again. Literally. Like to this day, I've never seen him again.
Wow.
Yeah.
And this all happened at 10. Was that something that you believe impacted your childhood from 10 throughout high school or anything? And did it make you nervous, weary, cautious about being around male figures at that point?
The weird thing about it is that I can say no, because when you don't know, and then, like I said, after that moment, that night, after that meeting, we never saw him again and we never talked about it again.
Mm-hmm.
So I just repressed it. It was a thing that happened and now it's over, but it's never over. And I think, that's the point of this show tonight, is that these things do follow you through your life, unconsciously or consciously. So for me, it was
unconsciously. And so at 10, you're free of that particular experience and you go throughout high school, junior high school as a average, regular, everyday student, young person. But you experienced some bullying along the way, and we talked a little bit about that. Let's talk about being in a predominantly Caucasian school. What did that mean? Did you ever feel out of place, or you fit perfectly in and it was okay with you? So talk a little bit about that experience, rather, and when the bullying began there for you in the school system.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, the bullying started around the tail end of the whole molestation experience. So it was like this just stream of things happening, right? And so like the ages of 9 or 10 or so, there was a group of boys that just started picking on me. They would hit on me. They would call me names. I was fatty 2x4, can't get through the bathroom door, all of this stuff. And that came to a head when I was around the same age, around 10.
Okay.
And this one particular boy kicked me so hard on my shin that it was a huge egg. Now, growing up in the 70s, old school parents, ain't no way you coming home with no bruise, with no cut, with a pencil that don't belong to you, and they don't question you about it. So when I could not hide that from my mother. So when she saw this egg on my leg, she was like, where did that come from? And when I told her who did it, our school at the time had a directory. So it had all the children and their parents names and all of that stuff. And she went to that book and she looked up that boy's parents and she called up that man. I don't know what they did to him, but he never bothered me again. That particular boy. But a couple other ones used to still like hit on me and stuff like that. And I used to go home and I used to tell my mother, I said, these boys hitting on me, whatever. And she's like, look here. She said, the next one that hit you, hit them back.
Okay.
The next time it happened, I followed her instructions. Did you get I got one good one in and they never bothered me again. But I didn't realize that those things have an effect on you. But again, because you don't talk about it, you don't address it, you don't process it, it's a thing that happens, it's a blip in the road, you move on. And so at that time now, I'm really developing as a girl, faster than everybody in my class. Like by this time, I'm in the 6th grade. And I'm already wearing a bra, like a full-on bra. When I look at the pictures, looking back, like I had more breasts than my teacher.
You know what? Nowadays, that's not so strange because I think average girls start wearing bras in primary school nowadays.
Yeah. And so by the time school ended and that summer, I got my first period and everything. So I went into the 7th grade like a fully developed girl. However, with all of the girls around me in class, they were all the size ones, the size twos, the size three, four. They're all very slim. Even the black girls,
Mhm.
slim and shapely and all of this other stuff. And so I always saw myself as maybe a size 8, 10 at that time, as
Okay.
this huge girl.
Mm.
But I never, again, attributed it to comparing, but just knowing innately like there's something different, and maybe this different is not good enough. I
Mhm.
think was the message that I came, because I was not one of those. I was very friendly, and I was accepted by a
Mhm.
lot of people. And one of my school friends, she said, you were the only black girl who used to get invited to the white parties.
Right.
That was so funny. But I got along with everyone. I was so shocked when I was voted head girl and all of this stuff. So I
Mhm.
was shocked, because I felt like when you talked about memories being repressed and so forth, it was almost like those years were now a blur for me. Like I couldn't really remember much.
Mhm.
Um, and so I was shocked that I would have had that type of a positive impact
Yeah.
on my classmates and whatnot. But I recognized that there was a difference. And I couldn't put my finger on it at that time, but I
Mhm.
recognize now that it then created body image issues. That
Okay.
if you are full figured, that there's something wrong with you, that you are not attractive, because I didn't have all the boys chasing me,
Mhm.
and so when you
Did
look
it
at the other
matter?
girls,
Did it matter that the boys weren't?
yeah,
I
it
mean, at the
did.
time.
I mean, as a teen girl, you see everybody else having, they're crushing, and you go to the school dance, and by the end of the school dance, you go in, and even though you break up by Monday, at least you could say you was going for 3 days, you know. So
Right.
it does make a difference, I think, at that age,
Mhm.
when you still have these desires to fit in, and
Mhm.
to feel accepted.
Yeah.
And so it starts this whole spin-off thing, I think, with people pleasing, and doing things to be accepted, not wanting to be alone. And you don't know where these things come from,
Mhm.
you know?
Now, the story gets the plot thickens
Oh,
because
Lord.
what at 14, like you meet who the person that would become your husband, like at 14. Tell us about that encounter though, and just the various nuances of that particular relationship.
Lord, okay. Your
14.
show isn't long enough for me to talk about all the nuances.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that encounter of meeting that gentleman at that age sparked a whole different side of this drama that I never signed up for, never imagined could happen, never thought would happen to me. And it was almost as if, and I think it was, I felt targeted when I think back on it. And it developed into this relationship with an older man, that at that time was married.
How much
And
older?
so
How much older?
13 years older. And it created this, again, the secrecy and the shame, because you couldn't talk about what was going on. And I felt like I couldn't get away from him. I was afraid for him more so than for me. I felt like he would hurt himself based on the things that he would do and say, and was very dramatic about certain things. And so I went through the last year or so of my high school years um, in that situation, and went into my first 2 years of college, which I did locally, because I didn't finish school until I was 15. So I didn't feel ready. Some of my classmates went off at 16. I just didn't feel ready to go. And
Mhm.
I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I stayed home. I stayed and went to the Bahamas Hotel Training College. And all through that experience, I did very well. And this is the thing that we have to be careful of, because you can do well in some aspects of your life and do abysmally in other aspects of your life. And so for me, academically, I never had an issue. You know, socially, I didn't really have issues. I had friends and so forth. But I emotionally, I was an absolute wreck. And I didn't even know I was on a train wreck. And so all through those years, I mean, those 2 years of college, I did 2 years of college abroad. This man was present and controlling me literally from Nassau while I was in college. I had a time that I had to be in my room. He knew I had to give him my schedule, my class schedule, and he had to know where I was going at all times. And yeah, it was like that deep. And when I would try to get away and say, hey, I've had enough of this. I think I was probably nearing 18 at this point. I think I was 18, 19 around this time. And I was saying, hey, you know, I'm done with this. And he was on a flight, the next flight. And I was like, boy, I can't get away from this man. I'm stuck.
What is it, do you think, in hindsight, that even though you were away from him physically, he still had the control and the manipulative powers too? Even though you're like away, he can't see what you're doing literally. What do you think it was that kept you?
It was, again, that childhood trauma, because from that moment, unconsciously, I felt powerless. I felt like I would always be at the hands of someone in authority over me, in particular a man, and that I had to obey. I mean, I grew up in that era of a good child does as they're told. And I mean, my parents were not oppressive with it, but it was a value that was instilled. And so it was just automatic. If you were told to do something, if you had to go somewhere or whatever, then this is what you did. And I remember growing up with my mom, if you went to somebody's house, you stood to the door until they told you, okay, come in. And when they tell you come in, okay, so you can have a seat, then you have a seat. That's the kind of era I grew up in. And so, you know, it just translated unconsciously that somebody in authority over me, someone had power over me that I did not have power. So from a very early age, I didn't understand that. So when he comes along now, this is only 8 years after that whole experience, never really dealt with it. Here comes another authoritarian looking figure telling me what to do. And I'm like, okay, well, I guess I'm supposed to do it. And so it never dawned on me, like, you thousands of miles away from this dude, like, you could do whatever you want. Like, why are you so concerned? You know, and it just didn't even cross my mind. I was just like, okay, you're just supposed to do what you're told, because that is the psyche that had now been built.
So you graduate college at 20, amazing. Well, you return home and you're coming back into this relationship. Well, you never left it, but coming back physically now to be in the same place with this individual, and then knowing what you knew, still under the control and manipulation of that person, you marry at 21.
I was 23.
23? Okay.
Yeah.
Same difference.
Right?
Like,
totally green.
That's really making that decision. Obviously, he got divorced subsequently through that process. So making the decision to marry, was that your decision exclusively? Did you feel like you were just so in love and you just wanted and needed to be with him forever? Or did you feel kind of manipulated into that? Or what state of mind were you in at 23 to take on a marriage?
Well, as you could tell, I was very green. So it was never a matter of, this is the love of my life, and you know, I just have to spend the rest of my life with him. It was never that. It was always where, I mean, he told me at very early on that God told him I was his wife. But I was probably around 16 or something like that. So that already was like in my head, like, oh, okay, well, then I guess if God said so.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, with everything that transpired up to this point and me feeling this helpless, powerless, I can't get away, I was just resigned to it. And by this point, it was already so much in the shame-based nature of everything that now I felt like marriage was going to absolve me. It was going to vindicate me. Marriage would clean me up, so to speak, and I would be that honorable woman, you know? And so that was really the mindset that I went into it with. It wasn't starry-eyed. And then even the experience of it was pretty stressful. Going through the whole, I ended up having a fight with my sister, and my priest was freaking out on the rehearsal, and I was crying, and it was just like so much stress and so much
It was
drama.
drama just to get to the wedding day.
Yeah, it was just a lot.
And how long did you stay in that particular marriage? Because you got married at 23. How long did it last?
Just shy of 12 years. In actual fact, the divorce came through just a couple of days before what would have been our 12th anniversary. So it was a total of 20 years.
Wow.
With this man. 12 years, almost 12 years of marriage. So I was 34, I think, when we got divorced.
What was it? What was that? What they say, the straw that break the camel's back, that you finally said, you know what? Enough. I'm tired of this person controlling my life. I'm tired of this person. I'm tired of being miserable. I'm sick and tired of being tired. What was it that brought you to that point to say, this is it, I got to get out of this?
Yeah, there were 2 points in the marriage where I left. And one was within like the 3rd year of marriage. And it was just so oppressive and dark. And I just literally ran away. I like perfected running away from home. Like I could give a master class on how to get away. But so that first experience, and it was very uncanny because I had gotten saved at 20. So when I got back from college, I had gotten saved, and I was very active in church, and he was active in church. We were active in the same ministry and all of that. But I had started to have dreams, and God would speak to me visually, because I'm a visual learner. So he would either show me messages, scripture, dreams. That's typically how I would hear from God, or impressions. And so I'll never forget that first time where I turned to the scripture that I'd never seen before. It was a scripture in Luke, and it was talking about the farmer that had the fig tree that was not bearing.
Okay.
And it said specifically that the owner wanted to chop it down. The farmer was like, get rid of it. And so, no, the caretaker of it said, no, let me dig around it for 1 year, put some manure, whatever, see if we could get this tree to catch. And if after this year and there still doesn't bear, cut it down. And that jumped out at me, because this is now like year 3, and it was saying this tree was for 3 years, give it 1 more year. And I was like, what in the world? What is this saying to me?
Wow.
And so in that period, I left. I went for counseling, because I said, something is going on here that I don't understand. I don't understand myself. I don't understand what's going on in this situation. And my counselor at the time laughed at me, because I came in the office and I said, I am here for me. I'm not here for no marriage or nothing. I said, I'm here for me. I need to know what is going on. But God bless his soul, he's passed away, but he always used to remind me of that thing. You just came in this office saying, I'm here for me. I come to get me, And so I started with counseling, and that was going well. And of course, he was very upset, wanted me to come back home, all this sort of stuff. And so he was like losing weight and very upset and all of this other stuff. And I would tell my counselor, and he was like, you know what, this is kind of classic. This is what happens. And then when you go back, it's pretty much what they want. And then they're going to stop any effort to be better or different or go to counseling, whatever. So we started doing the couples counseling in addition to me doing my individual counseling. And I would go to group sessions as well and all that. So really getting the understanding of self and all of that. And then of course I did not follow my counselor's advice, and I went back, and sure enough, it just went right back to what it was. And I was like, wow, counselor was right. And so that happened, and I stayed for another 8 years.
8 years. So you said there were 2 incidents. So that was the first.
Yeah, so that was the first one. And the other one, I left again. And same situation, going to be different, blah, 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 blah. And so the final time, this would have been the 3rd time now. And this particular time, he would have gone, this would have been the 2nd job that I would have had, that he would have gone to the boss and talking about me having an affair with somebody on the job and all of this sort of thing. Very, insecure and jealous and stuff like that. And so for me, that was the straw, that I was just so distraught and upset and, just couldn't believe it. I remember walking out of the meeting with the boss, who was figuring he was just doing a good thing by giving me this nice friendly lecture about marriage, not knowing really the backstory of everything. And it just took all of me to just hold it together to get out of the office. As I said, I'm not going to cry in this office. But when I got to the restroom, and this was actually in a hotel that we had the meeting. And so when I got into the restroom, I was just wailing and wailing and wailing. And the poor housekeeper was in there, was trying to console me through the door. She must have thought I got fired. She was like, child, these jobs ain't everything. You just gotta, and I felt so sorry for her. I said, if she only knew. And it was at that point, I called my sister and I was like, you can't believe what he did. And I'm wailing. And she was like, you just got to get out. You got to get out. You have to get out of this. And so one of my high school friends actually worked at the same hotel. And I had just maybe a month or so had asked her, so family had apartments. And I was just like testing out the waters. I was like, do y'all have any apartments, whatever? So I called her at that moment and I said, I think I'm going to need that apartment or something. And she was like, what's going on? And I told her, and she met me right there on the spot, gave me the key to her place. And she was like, just go there. I'll meet you there later and we'll figure it out, whatever. And that's how I got out. And so he didn't know where I was. He didn't know how to find me. He was just calling my phone. And so it's the distancing that helped. Not answering the calls and all, because it would be the same thing. But this time it felt like, what? I've heard this so many times before. I know that nothing is going to change. Nothing is going to get better about this situation. And so I had to just hold my ground, and it was not easy. And so I'm very empathetic to people who are in difficult situations. And it's very easy when you're on the outside looking in to tell somebody, oh, just get out, just get out. It's not that easy. It's a lot of emotional turmoil. There's a lot that goes on mentally for you to reconcile that it's over. No one chooses to get married, to get divorced.
Yes.
I don't care what anybody says. Nobody goes in with that intention. And so all of those things play in your mind. You don't want to fail. You don't would know what people think. You're in the church. How is that going to look? Yes. All sorts of other things, that's going through your mind, aside from the whole emotional connection of it all.
Wow. If you're just joining us, welcome to another edition of Swerve with me. I'm Miranda. My guest tonight is Simmone Bowe, the Limitless Life Coach. Make sure you share this live stream because this has so many life lessons that may be able to help someone who's going through a situation right now, a marriage, a relationship that they can't seem to find their way out no matter what's happening. Let me just go to a few comments and read what they're saying. Okay. So I see a comment here from Decreaser Dean, she says, even family members
Sequester.
molest the Quessa, even
Mhm.
family members molest children, they should protect and nurture. We can't take for granted that our children are safe. Okay.
Yeah.
Nayoka says, that's why I don't allow my kids to be around anyone. Okay.
Nope. I
No,
don't care who they are.
no sleepover.
Mm-mm.
Uh, the Quessa says, Simone, you're amazing. All of those situations were purposed to allow you to help others heal from their abuse. God has graced you for this journey. Absolutely.
Amen. Amen.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Um,
that's my
Ma-
sister friend. Love
yeah.
you, girl.
Okay. So I have Maxine Newton. That's my mama. Yeah. She said, good night. Good show. She said,
Teba, teba.
she said, she's so proud of you, Simone.
Oh, thank you, Elder
So
Max.
Naoka says, three strikes and you're out.
Yes,
Um,
Naoka.
My
Thanks for tuning in.
auntie Liz says, awesome work. Yeah. And Jackie Note says, what a story, Simone. Great show. Joseph
Sure.
Washington says, great show. Thank
Oh,
you all
thanks.
for all of you who are tuning in. Make sure you share the stream because we're taking it up another level, y'all. We're about to take it up yet another
I
level.
can't deal with Miranda, you know.
We're about to take it higher, y'all. Y'all
I tell you enough. Why are you trying to Oprah
I
me, man?
promise you, y'all need to share this. Like, I mean, we're giving you a moment. Go ahead and share this live stream. Simone is such an incredible and such a strong individual, and we're laughing and because she's worked her way through this pain, and that's
Oh,
one of
boy.
the things that we'll focus in on a little bit later, and continues to work her way through. And I think that's why she's so effective in what she does, because again, she is not afraid to show us scars. And so you got out of that marriage, like
Yeah.
hallelujah,
Yeah.
hallelujah, hallelujah. You got out of that marriage. And some would say you stepped out of the frying pan into the fire. That's what some would say. But
Yeah.
you got into another relationship. But I want to talk about that period between finally getting divorced and getting out of that controlling and manipulative relationship into something new, which started online. And we know nowadays that's where a whole lot of relationships began
Yeah.
online. Some people, and I know it's a lull, and it's kind of like a false sense of reality, like a utopia that exists online, because obviously the person is saying all the things that they believe you want to hear, and perhaps you need to hear at that particular time, and vice versa. You're probably doing
Right.
the same thing and saying, to the person. And so you meet someone online, okay? Yeah. You meet someone online who literally really is not the same online as the person you just walked away from. And
Mm-hmm.
so obviously he was saying the right things and making you feel whole, making you feel secure, making you feel complete in a sense, but making you feel hopeful, I believe, more than anything else. Tell
Yep.
us about that encounter online. How did it start? And yeah, we'll keep walking after that.
Yeah, so I was on one of the very new social spaces. I mean, this was before Facebook, if there was ever a life before Facebook, right? But I think it was High Five or something like that. I think was the name of it. I can't remember now.
Yeah.
I think it was called High Five. It wasn't MySpace because I never really got onto MySpace, but I think it was High Five.
But
And
wait,
so,
before you go there,
mhm.
tell us the period of time between the divorce and walking away from that and picking up this online relationship.
This would have been probably about a year and a half,
Okay.
maybe from separation to divorce. Because remember that there was probably about a year and a half of separation.
Okay.
And then, there's a period of time before you go to court and divorce becomes final and all of that.
Mhm.
So my divorce would have been final. That would have been, yeah, close to a bit over a year and a half from the final separation, whatever. So I would have been like newly divorced that summer.
Mhm.
and getting contacted by this gentleman on this space. And we just started talking. I mean, literally just, and I think it was just sending messages on that platform back and forward, emails back and forward. And then, got into calls, and you'd have these long conversations. And that would be, I think, the thing with long distance relationships, because you have to engage. Like,
Mhm.
there's no other option that you have than to talk.
And that creates I believe that creates the intensity of the call
Yes,
faster because you spend more time talking. Yeah.
exactly. And so you find that common ground, and you start to build and bond and all of that sort of thing, and you start to dream and what if and all of that other stuff. And so that is exactly what happened in that. And like you said, I think it was almost like a bomb on my heart.
Mhm.
It was just so different, and it felt so soothing based on all of what I'd gone through before. And it just was so different as in terms of the vibe and the flavor. It was easy.
Yeah.
It was easy. It was almost like meeting a friend, you know, with connection, with chemistry.
How long did it take the conversation to turn from hi, I'm so and so from this? Like how many months before the expressions of feelings happened?
Yeah.
Like how long did that take?
I think maybe about 3 months.
Oh wow.
3 to 4 months, yeah.
Okay.
Because then after that, it would have been about 6 months in that I made the decision that I was going to visit
So listen, this wasn't like just going to visit around the corner or like
to
our
Miami.
siblings in the north, North America or perhaps even South America. So we're talking about making a decision to go alone, I may add, to Africa, to
Yeah.
Nigeria to be precise.
Yes.
Please tell me what kind of headspace you were in, first of all, when you decided to. I know you wanted to meet him because you'd been talking and you caught feelings, as they say, but
Yeah.
to do it alone, like, please just help walk us through how you would leave the Bahamas. I don't know how long the trip is to Nigeria because I've never been there. I'd take that trip all the way to Nigeria alone.
Well, it's 8 hours to London and then 6 hours to Lagos. So
Hmm.
that's,
14 hours. Okay.
yeah, 14 hours.
14
Aside,
hours.
layovers aside.
Right. Alone. But
Alone.
talk about the decision, first of all, that you get to this point at 6 months or thereabout to say, you know what? I'm coming to visit you. First of all, tell us who the person was in essence. What did he do? And why did you feel so secure in wanting to take that trip?
I think, when we go back to the topic at hand and the childhood trauma, and when you study stuff like this and you realize that you are emotionally stunted at a particular age, I realized that I was still functioning like a child. It
Mm-hmm.
was that inner child that was running my life. So I didn't think about anything.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't think.
You didn't think.
I
Okay,
didn't
so
think.
I gotta read this one. Maxie says,
I just went
"Girl,
on feelings.
oh, you were daring." Yes, listen,
Trust
daring
me.
to put it mildly. But so you didn't think. You just thought it would be a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, you just do what you got to do. I was in love.
Hmm. So you make this trek to Nigeria. Oh, you didn't tell us who was he? Like, what did he do? Like, what was his bike account like? No, I'm just kidding. But who, who was he that made you take a trek across the world?
I don't know. I didn't know any of those things. And that's why I say these things are so crazy. Like, he told me of things that he was trying to do, and it was all like
So
nothing
it's a
really tangible
potential.
or definitive. Exactly.
It's a
And yeah,
potential.
trying, trying to make it, as we say,
Hmm.
and it's a hustle. And
Right.
so like, but none of those things mattered. It
Hmm.
didn't matter to me at all.
It
And
did not.
so I went over there, and it was it was an adventure. I mean, it was honestly, I would say, the best time of my life. I felt free. I felt connected, first of all, to the motherland. It was just an amazing spiritual connection. It's very uncanny. I mean, I don't even know how to describe it. But going there and seeing yourself,
Hmm.
seeing you, we could tell that this is where we're from. Like, this isn't just stories that people talk about. You walk down the street and you looking twice because you're like, that person looked like a baby. And you know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're on the side of the road selling everything, just like how we are
Hmm.
here. You go, they have beaches. I didn't even know they have beaches in Nigeria, but you go on the beach and it looks exactly like the fish fry. You have the stalls lined down the beaches, horses, people riding horses on the beach. Every stall got music licking off, spying, selling food.
Hmm.
The guys gathered around a little plastic white table and they drinking and laughing, and it was like I was at home.
A
It
familiar
literally
culture.
felt like, yes, the culturally, I mean, the food, some of the things were of course very different, and
Sure.
culturally it was very different, and I embraced that because I ate it up. I wanted to learn it, like having to wash your right hand and eat with your hand, and things like that. It was like, wow, this is awesome,
So you
and
just punched
so
in. You
I
just
just jumped right in, man. I was like, hey,
wow. Okay. So you
yeah.
get there. You're enjoying the culture, of course, and all the
Hmm.
history and all that goes along with it. This
Hmm.
man, though, let's get back to him. So we want to know about him. So you get there, and from the moment you get there, you feel at home. You don't. Was there anything inside of you that said, "Girl, what are you doing?" Like,
When
are
I
you out of
got to
your
the airport, when I
huh?
got to the airport, I felt like okay, I'm nervous now.
Hmm.
And there was so many people. Like, I'd never seen that many people before in my life. Like, it was like 5 rows of people deep just to get into the baggage claim. Like, I had never seen that many people. So many people.
Hmm.
And then I'm there waiting for my bag, and then I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know this person, and what if he doesn't like me? And all of this, all sorts of things is going through my head. Like, what are you doing? And
Hmm.
so I took forever to come out of the airport, out of the baggage claim and everything. It's like, you took so long. I'm like,
Did he
yeah.
look like the pictures? I mean, that's the first question. Like, did he look like the pictures that you saw?
Yeah, he did. He was like really tall, and taller than I expected, but I'm short, so I guess that worked. But yeah, so he was taller than I expected, but very gentle. Like, his spirit, his
Mm.
spirit was kind,
Okay.
So I never felt any bad vibes like that. And he came with his family, which is like another cultural thing, that the family was so important. And so his brother and his brother's wife and everybody, his brother's best friend, everybody came along and met me at the airport. And I was like this big thing,
Were you
and
surprised to see all of those people there? Did you know they were coming?
not really, no,
Oh,
not really. It didn't really register. I don't know. I think I was just in a cloud.
okay.
It
So
wasn't really
you're there,
registering.
you're getting to know him day to day, you're having an amazing time. Any
Mhm.
red flag yet, or everything's just going along fine?
No, there was nothing because, I mean, well, the only thing would have been, okay, maybe like, what does he do for a living type thing?
Like, that's
Would have
huge.
been, yeah, that would have been the only thing. But as far as anything else, like, he always was attentive, we always spent quality time together. we had a lot of common ground as far as music, and we just sit and watch movies and talk. And so for me, that was like a breath of fresh air. It was really, really nice.
You
And
felt like it
we
was
bonded
something
very
to
well.
stay. You felt like
Yeah,
you could literally stay there. Okay, so
but it was rough now. No, let me not
let's talk
gloss
about
this
the
over
roughness.
and
Yeah, let's get
romanticize. Yeah, because Nigeria as a place was a rough place. I mean, it's very, very modern. I don't
which
want people
city?
to
I'm sorry,
think
which
I
city
was
were you in?
in Lagos, in
Oh,
Lagos. So it's big city. I'm talking, skyscrapers and highways and all of that massive traffic. The traffic was terrible, but the electricity situation was horrible.
mhm.
We would go days without electricity. I mean, we complain about our provider over here, but when people talk to you about NEPA, boy, I tell you, days without electricity if you're not like, wealthy to have a generator and all of that type of stuff, to have steady electricity.
Mhm.
So that was pretty bad. A lot of places didn't have running water. So that was my first time actually not having running water like that.
So you're
Um,
talking about a lot of places. You mean the place you were staying didn't have running water?
Yeah, and the church where we went as well didn't have running water. A lot of places you go, the one thing that I was craving the most when I was over there was ice, because you just in the places where we were going, you just couldn't even get ice. So you would be drinking these like just barely cool sodas and things like that. It's just like, oh, you just miss that cold beverage feeling, you
Wow.
know. So it was interesting, and we got held up at gunpoint and
Yeah, I
stopped by the
was.
police. And
Yeah, I want to just about to shift to that adventure. So you're on your way to a church service with
Mhm.
with the person you're dating,
And
his
his
brother,
brother,
or family member,
yeah.
or something. Driving down the street, minding your own business, and what happens?
Well, we discovered that they had this huge. It was like a lamp pole type piece of wood that they had across the end of the street, and we realized, okay, we can't go any further. And then there was a gentleman just ahead of the pole with a rifle standing at an open lot, directing people to just go into the lot, I guess to extort money or whatever. And so we had to turn into the lot like everybody else, because he's standing there with this huge um, automatic weapon or whatever it was. I know, gun expert, but
What
it
are
was a
you
big gun.
what are you thinking and feeling at that moment that you see this man standing in the street with this automatic weapon directing you? Like, what are you thinking, Simone?
I was like, what in the world? What is happening here? I come here to die.
Wow.
And so we went into the lot, and they get out of the car, and they go to reason with him. They left me in the car, and they go out to talk to him. And at that point, I actually had written my first book.
Hmm.
And so I had brought that book for them, and some other books that I had brought for them. I brought, gifts and stuff like that. And so they brought the book. Fortunately, they had the book with them, and they showed it to the guy, and they're like, hey, we're just going to church. She's here visiting. This is her book, let us go through. So the next thing I know, now I'm sitting in the car sweating and praying, like, God help us. And the guy comes to the window, and I'm like, he has the book, and he's like, is this you? So I said, yes, it is. So he said, are you going to church? So I said, yes. I don't know if I should lie or what. So I said, anyway, I can just tell the truth. this is the
Right.
man with this is the man with the gun.
Hmm.
So I said, yeah, we're going to church. So he said, could you pray for me? And I was like, what? I wasn't expecting that, like, no way, no how. And so I was like, okay. So what's your name? And he gave me his name, and I prayed for him, and then he beckoned to them, and he said, y'all go. And that's how we got out.
Okay. So I mean, okay, you was held at gunpoint. What was the ride like to church? And if at any moment did you want to like, let's go back home, or are you like, hey,
You
let's get
know?
in this church and let's praise God, you know?
Yeah, it was more like, okay, yeah, we got something to praise God about. And they just praise and worship and pray differently in Africa, man. It's the intensity is amazing,
Mhm.
and they could just go for hours.
Right.
We get tired after 15 minutes of praise and worship, but boy, they go in,
Right.
and so yeah. So but the dynamic was interesting then, because what I realized is that my love of my life at that point was not saved. His brother was, and his brother was very active in the church, and that's how I ended up going to church and all of that. But
Okay.
he was not. And so he was considered like a rebel because he had, his hair was rode down or whatever. And that was like a no in
Mhm.
that church and all of that stuff. And so he was considered more like an outcast. Actually, I didn't even realize it,
Okay.
you know. But it was after he and I kind of fell apart that he actually came to know the Lord. And I mean, to this day, he actually is a minister of the word and preaches and teaches and all of that stuff. So it's amazing the evolution, of people and all that over time.
So
So it was very interesting that I was worshiping
yeah,
and he was not. But
yeah.
it was, I don't know, you
So
know.
let's I want to speed up the story a little bit because it gets juicier. So so
Yeah,
10
deal with
years
Miranda.
she goes on this trip. No, she goes to Africa for 2 weeks originally.
Why
Um,
you have to put my business on the street like this?
we try to help some people. We try to get some people delivered and set free from all that. You're just that person to do that. So y'all listen. So she goes to Africa for 2 weeks, of course, to meet him and has an amazing time outside of that, just totally out of body experience of being held at gunpoint. But gels with the family and really is enjoying her time, like she said, and she stays an extra week. But here's the catch: she stays an extra week and gets married. She was supposed to be there for 2 weeks and come home. She stays an extra week and gets married, and then has to leave and come back home without a husband. Let's just talk about that. I mean, what was it that said to Simone again? This is a good idea to get married. Um, his family's nice, but like seriously, the same child. Like you
Mhm.
think that's what it was?
Abandoned. Yeah, it was just,
Wow.
let's ride the wave. Okay, it feels good. Let's do it. Now, I was crazy nervous and all of that stuff, but it felt good in the moment. And
Mhm. Did you
yeah, I
call
felt that
home?
that
Like, did you call home before you did that, or you just
no,
showed up home and said, "Ta-da! I'm married, y'all."
pretty much.
What was that like?
Pretty much. My family were like, you are insane. You certifiable, like where you going? That ain't gonna work, blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
So yeah, so that kind of put a whole damper on how all the excitement and everything that I had, and this bubble
Mhm.
that we were in. It showed me, first of all, how people feel about foreigners,
Okay.
and just
But
the
take
whole
the
thought
foreign
of,
out of it, Simone, though. In hindsight, take the foreign out of it. You went on a vacation, as far as your family knew, just to meet someone.
yeah.
Got married. That's come on now. That's bigger than just foreign. Like
So
something wrong with you, Simone. Like why you did that? So it's bigger than I appreciate and I understand and accept the whole foreign aspect, but Simone,
yeah.
you came back married.
Yeah, I
Um,
know.
and he didn't even come with you because here's the thing. about, being in Africa, and I think them having to get like a special visa or something to travel, and that process took a while to happen, or you worked on it for a couple of years. Just talk about what that was like. You're now married back in the Bahamas. He's in Nigeria, and you're trying to work on his paperwork, I guess both of you, to get him to the Bahamas.
Yeah, that was a very, very difficult time. That was a horrible experience. And so we ended up being married and together for essentially 2 days. We got married like 3 days before I left Nigeria, because my sister called to say that a job had called. They wanted me to start. Bearing in mind, this was like January or whatever. So I think I was supposed to start this job in February, the first week of February or something like that. Anyway. Mm-hmm. And so he asked me to marry him. I do three days out. So we have this 2 days of honeymoon, I guess. Mm-hmm. And literally that was the last time I saw him in person from then to now, which would be 14 years.
Okay. All right.
So yeah.
Let me just process that. Okay. Got it. All right. So you leave, you return, but I don't want the story to end there, because you did try to
yes.
get him into the country, and it just didn't work out because of logistics and politics.
Yeah. So it's easy for some nationalities to get into the Bahamas, but it's not easy for others. Mm-hmm. And especially if you don't have means. So and in hindsight, I probably should have stayed and we worked together to get him over, because for him to get a transit visa into any country like the UK or the US was mission impossible. Like, unless you have tons of money to show, that you can sponsor your trip and all of that you're not a flight risk and all this sort of thing. So we just two regular people, we got thousands of dollars or whatever to show that, And so that process was so harrowing and just so emotionally distressing, because you tried several times applying for visas, the transit visas. And here's why: because our policy states that in order for a person to get the visa, they have to appear at a Bahamian embassy. Mm-hmm. There's no Bahamian embassy in Nigeria. The closest one would be in London.
Right.
So he would have to get approved to fly into London to appear before the embassy to get to apply for and obtain a visa to come to the Bahamas or any other country where we have an embassy. So whether that is London, whether that is somewhere in the States. So we don't have where, like, for me to go to Nigeria, all I had to do was apply. Mm-hmm. I had to send my passport and have a FedEx thing returned, and they returned my passport by FedEx with the visa in it. Mm-hmm. So, and you have other countries is the same. You apply online and you get, automatic, but it was not like that for us. They have to appear. And so
sorry. Mm-hmm. How long did it take? So you worked on it for a while, a couple of years.
A few years.
And at what point did you kind of lose hope that both of you, I guess, or you decide, you know what, this is not going to happen?
Yeah, it was more me than him, to be honest. I mean, I just kind of.
How many years later?
Probably I would say 3 to 4 years. Wow. of trying back and forward, and me saying, okay, well, I'll come back there and live. And then it's like, no, this is too rough and rugged or whatever. We'd probably be better off if I left. And it was just so difficult. And then at one point, we came very close. It would have been a very long and arduous trip for him. Mm-hmm. And then I got cold feet and was just like, no, I don't. And so I've always lived with that regret of wondering, did I really make a mistake of not pushing hard enough, not trying hard enough um,
Wow.
to, you know, to see that through? Because, we just had such intense feelings, and that's really like the test of love, the test of a commitment is when you now get into the worst. This is the worst now. You are
Right.
separated, and it doesn't seem as if there's any hope of reuniting. What do you do?
That was
You know?
4 years in, though. You were doing
Yeah. So
that was 4 years in. So I
yeah. So we kind of went back and forward of each taking turns of wanting to and not wanting to, and like back and forward, and then yeah. So we finally just
so
gave up.
so that marriage ended in divorce eventually.
Hmm.
And but you're such a trooper, girl. You are such a trooper. She's such a trooper. Like literally, Simone, we're laughing and having this, but seriously, your spirit, the spirit that you possess as a fighter, and not allowing things to like just for me, like, okay, that would have been enough to say, you know what? Like,
I give up.
it just ain't working out. And so, just like go sit in a corner somewhere on hold. But you, because of that childlike manner that you were
I
so
think that's it.
and full of hope. I mean, you got involved in another relationship,
Yeah.
and that the thing that and not making light of it, but the fact that you continue to to make yourself available to be loved uh,
Yeah.
is amazing because you have to make yourself
Yeah.
available to do that. Uh,
Yeah.
how in the next relationship, and these weren't terrible relationships for the most part. Besides the first one, who was just obviously a controller and a manipulator. But so you get involved with another person, and he's different for each one of these men. I gotta say, there are no particular patterns that I've heard you mention with these men, or have you been able to identify? Because I haven't heard any particular patterns.
Yeah. Not particularly, but the very last experience that was my real breaking point. Even though all of those were like breaking points, but this was like my real like, okay, this isn't the worst ever. I don't know if I'll survive this experience.
Mhm.
I would say yes. The patterns were similar as far as the control and the
That
manipulation,
will be the
but it
first and
was just
last.
the last, just 10 times worse than the first.
Yeah.
It was crazy. Yeah. This is
So,
crazy.
so let's talk about working your way through. As you go through these different relationships and experiences, Simone is beginning to do the work on Simone. And I'm sure you're
Hmm.
beginning at the stage to ask yourself some questions about the choices that I'm making, why I'm making these choices, and you're working your way through. So let's talk a little bit about the work that you've had to do in
Yeah.
terms of seeking a therapist or whatever to help you navigate through what you seem to be like a roller coaster
Yeah.
in your life. And the thing about it is, it wasn't just like some wild, crazy. You really believed that these were good, solid relationships, and so it wasn't like you were
Hmm.
just bouncing frivolously here and there. But these
Hmm.
were relationships that just didn't work out. What kind of work have you had to do over the years to first revisit these things, even as we're doing tonight, and
Hmm.
deal with the person that Simone was then
Yeah.
and the picture that Simone had in her head of where she needed to be?
Yeah. And it's funny that you should say that because I didn't have that picture,
Okay.
right? So when we talk about coming out of the childhood pain that was repressed and suppressed and just not processed, not understanding it and not understanding how that played out in my life and my psyche and my emotions. It wasn't until these relationships entered and then became such a disruption in my life. Things that I wasn't accustomed to, experiences that I didn't grow up around, and I'm going through these things, this emotional turmoil and pain, that you come to this place of what they call the dark night of the soul, where you just get to the end of yourself, and you're like, what is this? You feel like your insides ripping out, like you're going crazy. You don't know what is going on, what is happening. And it is at those moments in life that you ask yourself these questions: who am I, and how did I get here? And why did I get here? And what do I need to do or not do to not go here again?
Yeah.
So I could definitely say that I'm not that impulsive person anymore that would just jump on a plane and, or anything, run off and get married on the beach in Abaco, like what I did. I mean, I'm not that person anymore, and so I realized that it had to start with me. I had to take accountability. I could very easily say, well, oh, they this, they that, they were the men, they should have done this, they should have done that. But I was a contributor to the conversation. I was a contributor to the situations.
Active
participant. Active participant. So I had to take responsibility for my part in that, even if it was making decisions that were not entirely spirit led, that were not, that I ignored signs, that God gave me. I ignored the human signs that I could see right in front of me. All of those things I had to take responsibility for. I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive God, because I had this expectation that he was my hero and that he would save me from all these things. Same thing like with my dad. I had these expectations that he would be there to protect me from these things and all of that. And so I had to process that. I had to process the helplessness, the victimhood that I felt, the powerlessness that I felt as a person, and the subsequent shame, which led to self-hatred, which, a very insidious, I think is the word, emotions, because they make you feel like you are not worthy. They make you feel like you're not enough. And so I got into,
you're referring to
those emotions of self-hatred and shame, because bear in mind now, I'm this sense of secrecy has always been following me. This sense of, cloaking and hiding and dodging whatever has followed me from a child. So it almost creates now this thing of everything that you're into is illicit almost. It's not out in the open. It's not something that you can celebrate openly and so forth. And so it creates this shame-based nature that now makes you actually hate yourself, and it makes you want to please other people and perform for love, and feel that you have to earn the love, and you have to work for it. You have to buy gifts and be the best friend. You have to be the great person. You have to be always the life of the party, and this person that's always going to be there and show up and do whatever and do the extra mile. And all I found was that I was just being taken advantage of over and over and over again. But it was what I was putting out there. It was what I was giving off, that you are this weak, desperate person that needs to be loved and that's craving and longing for this connection with another human being, and that you're craving actually being absolved and vindicated, being cleansed, and the cleansing would come from being in a relationship.
And so vindicated.
Exactly. And so all of these things now, when we talk about it in the personal development world of counseling and coaching, these are the things that you have to unpack.
Yes.
This baggage. You have to unpack it and understand it, and understand where it comes from, so that you don't continue to repeat the cycles. And that's what I realized, that I was in cycles. I was operating in patterns. that needed to be broken.
Yes. Yeah. So talking about patterns, I want to go to it's just so many layers, but
Yeah.
I wanna go to and I believe this is another area that's really going to help someone because before you married again, you had a relationship, and I want to be really sensitive about this. And you became pregnant and you lost your baby.
Yeah.
Um, I want to not so much talk about the relationship as much as how did you deal with the grief of losing a part of you, because I know that's something that a lot of women struggle with.
Mhm.
And how are you able to, and how did you work your way through the grief of losing, your child who was a part of you?
Yeah, that was very difficult, and the circumstances under which it happened was difficult because I was living in Abaco, and so of course no hospital or anything like that, and my water broke after the last flight was already gone. So I had to get
Mm,
an emergency flight out, got dropped on the tarmac, and pretty much had to fend for myself, and having to give birth. Actually, labor was induced, and having to give birth to a stillborn child,
mhm.
you know, um, was very, very difficult. Um, and I think I started to get into a depression of sorts. And the nurses, we say, well, they could be pretty rough. And I understand why. Like, they make you get out of bed, they make you walk around, they make you, like you have to shake it off. We have to really shake off those feelings that come to overwhelm you, And so I had to, um, I don't know if I even dealt with it properly, to be honest with you. I think that
I
was
was
just
about to ask you, do
another
you ever get
thing.
over it? Did
I
you
mean,
ever
you
do you ever get over it? Is that something you get over?
no, and I think people can be so insensitive when it comes to um, bearing children and childlessness and miscarriage, and especially women that have multiple miscarriages,
Yeah.
or women that never conceive, and people say such insensitive things, like, oh, when you're gonna have this baby. I mean, I still would have people to this point who would say, I mean, and even men who would say, well, oh, well, you single, you smart, you got a good job, you don't got no children, something got to be wrong with you. That's the type of stuff that people
Yes.
say, that you're damaged goods,
Yeah.
when you can't have a child. And so it's made me at least much more compassionate and understanding and sensitive
Yes.
to that. It's not the pain of trying and every month being unsuccessful. That's a horrible feeling.
Wow.
People don't understand what that feels like.
Mhm.
And so you're torn between, especially being a person of faith, you're torn between um, believing. I remember the times of people would say, well, buy and have these symbols of your faith, and I would have little children, baby clothes, and little bottle and this and that, because they tell you, walk in your faith, and I would have these things, and in hopes of having this child and all this other stuff, and it would just not happen. And so you're vacillating between, you
Mhm.
know, your faith and believing and hoping, and you reading stories in the Bible of these women at 90 and plus years old and still
Right.
getting pregnant. And so you've got to hold out hope, and so sometimes you say, well, oh, no, well, you reconcile and say, well, I a little past that age now, I'm keeping my hopes up. And then you'll have people who will say, well, it's never too late, and look at this celebrity is 51 or 55
Yeah.
or 60, and these people still having babies, and so you're
Just like a pendulum.
exactly. And so you just have to find peace in yourself. Like, people would ask me today, like, would you get married again? What about children and all this other stuff? And I'm like, you know what? I think I needed the period of my life, like the last 6 years of my life, of just being alone. It was very difficult, but I needed that time. I needed that time to find myself. I needed that time to figure me out. I needed that time to work on my purpose and to work on myself and to rebuild and to actually take that time to heal and to grow and to learn about me,
Yeah.
and God has been good to me. He's allowed me to rebuild my walls, so to speak, to understand my essence of who I am, and to not have me look like what I've been through, or to be a bitter, angry person. Like, people don't understand. And I think even that scares people off. Like, how could you have such a positive attitude? How could you be such a happy person after you would have gone through all of those things? But this is the power of forgiveness, and this is the power of healing. It's not that I haven't forgotten. I don't forget. I'm not going to let it consume me, and I'm not going to let it hinder me from living a healthy, happy life. But at the same time, it's a lot, and I'm grateful for the journey.
Yeah, definitely. You've been able to take lemons and make lemonade, and you've been helping so many people to work through uh,
Yeah.
those emotions and the various stages in their lives. Most people's life has not been as adventurous as yours, but everybody has some degree of adventure in their lives that they're dealing with and working their way through. And in your capacity as the limitless coach, tell me, why did you enter into that space, and what are some of the things that you're doing with clients as you work with them?
Well, I am my ideal client, and I had to come to that realization.
Mhm.
So, what my healing has allowed me to see is other people's pain in this area. And so I found that people that I work with are people who are similar to me in some way. Like, there's an aspect of their life that's going very, very well. Usually it's their career that's going well, and maybe their relationships may be going well, whatever. But there's that part of them that is hindered, that's
Mhm.
hindering their
Yeah.
forward motion, their progress, their advancement in life, and becoming all that they could be. And it's usually around limiting beliefs,
Mhm.
as far as it might be fear, it might be the self-hatred that I talked about, the sense of worthiness, adequacy, who's going to listen to me type thing. um, who am I to get out there and to have a message with anybody?
Mhm.
Or I'm not getting noticed, I'm not visible, I'm not getting where I should be at work because I'm not speaking up, I'm not having the courageous conversations, or I'm stuck in some bad relationship, and I'm not standing up for myself, and I'm not standing up for my truth, and I'm not recognizing my value. And so all of those things that I have personally gone through are the things that I work with people with. So the limitless life is really understanding, first of all, that you are a divine being with a purpose. You have a divine calling because you were sent to the earth to execute whatever that calling is. You are the answer. You are the solution to somebody's problem, or to the some cause, right? Because it's not always a person or a tribe of people that we're called to, but it might be a cause, like homelessness or hunger or poverty or whatever it is that you feel that you're called to. And so I recognize
Mhm.
that that is critical, that people need clarity around that. Sometimes people aren't very clear about why they are. And I'm
Yes.
actually in the process of writing a book on this, because I believe that we have been asking the wrong question all of these years. When
Mhm.
we ask someone, what do you want to be?
Hmm. Yeah.
That's already the wrong question,
Absolutely. Yep.
because a what isn't a be. Who do you want to be and what do you want to do are
Yes.
two different questions.
All
And
right, Miss
because
Major. I know you're right.
because we have made the focus
Hmm.
on being human doings,
Yes,
The
it definitely
focus
is.
on career and making money and status and all of these other things, we neglect the being.
Hmm.
We neglect understanding who we are. And that who we are is really what should feed what we do.
Absolutely. 100%. Let's get to a couple of more comments. See what's happening out here. So Esther Duke
I was
says,
trying to.
you are truly a risk taker in every sense of the word. That's what Esther Duke says. Galen Maynard says, this conversation is much needed. Reno
Oh,
Brennan says, hey, awesome show. Nothing like when all the pus is drained out of your scars.
boy.
That's real good. Irma Bain
Real
says,
talk.
never get over grief or the death of a loved one. You
Yeah.
get through it.
Yeah.
That's good. Noel St. Claude says, great show. And yes, a man is watching. You're not the only one. And thanks for watching. Thanks for watching. Nayoka says, the power of forgiveness.
Yeah.
So this has been, we haven't even, like, we just kind of scratched the surface. But I want to lighten it up a little bit. And this is what I call the lightning round in the show. I don't get it to do
Oh
it
my
with all the
gosh.
guests because it's just, depends on the tone. But this has really been intense. So I want to lighten it up a little. So I'll start with something like coconut tart or pineapple tart.
Pineapple tart. Hands
Okay.
down.
Okay. Gourmet punch or Coke.
Gourmet punch.
All right. That's a real behavior girl. Okay. Uh, crack conch or shrimp
Crack unk with onions.
with onions. All right. Now. Okay. Okay. Let's do this. Okay. How about uh, Johnny cake or pancake?
Oh, I gotta go with Johnny Cake though.
Okay, all right. You had to be a little nervous there. All right, all right.
Yeah, that was tough.
Johnny cake or
I like
pancake?
pancakes.
Chicken sauce, or stew fish.
Stew fish.
Okay, all right. Now, let's go big or go home. All right. So, sports car or sedan?
Um, I don't like none of them. I'm a Jeep girl.
Cheap. Okay, then. Okay. Okay. All right. So he's a cheap lady. Okay.
But sedan definitely over a sports car. I mean, I had a sports car, a little on the Civic,
Okay.
five on the floor, you know.
All right, then. All right. So,
But
so
I
we're
can't
going
get down in that now.
so red Jeep or a red Jeep or a black Jeep.
Black Jeep.
Black Jeep. Okay. All right. So yeah. All right. That's it. That's all I got for you right now. But thank you so much, Simone. Thank you for opening up, for sharing, giving us a glimpse into the gift called Simone Bowe, because you are truly a gift. And
Thank
I
you.
love the way how you are impacting the world in your space, in your sphere. I like the way how you are unpacking your gift and making sure that you share it and spread it around with as many as would receive it. And so I just want to thank you on behalf of all of us who swerve in this community. Thank you for being such an awesome guest. You will be back because there's so much more that we need to talk about, because I believe these types of conversations, as I call them, adult conversations for
Yeah.
mature audiences, where
Yeah.
people can really hear the truth about the people that you see, or even I'm bringing people to the fore who they may not even know has a story. But the
Yeah.
reality is everybody has a story.
Yeah.
Some more salacious than others, but everybody has a story that's worth telling. And I think that's the importance,
Yeah.
that they ought to know that their story is worth telling. It's worth sharing, because if you've lived long enough, you've been through something, no matter
Yeah.
where you come from, no
Oh
matter
yeah.
what the sum total of your experiences are, and whatever that experience or those experiences are, they are worth sharing. Your story is noteworthy, and there is someone or some people out there that will benefit from your story. So I want to encourage those of you out there who are listening, who are tuning in. We do this every Sunday night. We do this every Sunday night at 8 o'clock because we want to make sure that people out there are seeing real life people who look like them,
Yeah.
who share similar experiences, or maybe not. But the fact that these people have been able to do it, they've been able to swerve, they've been able to live a limitless life. They're working on living a limitless life, whatever the situation may be. I
Mhm.
often invite you, those of you out there, if you know of anybody who's overcome anything and they're not afraid to show their scars and they're not afraid to speak their truth, then we want to talk to them. We want to take people on a journey of self discovery, a journey of finding themselves, a journey of healing, a journey of opening up, because there are so many people that are still so closed and who have allowed their life experiences to be limitations to who they are and to what they want to do and where they've been. And so that's why it's wonderful to have conversations. And people are saying, Simmone, you were so real as Galen Maynard. Excellent presentation.
Thank you.
Max says, great job, girls. Jackie, oh, hey, Jack, that's my girlfriend from college. Great
Oh,
conversation. Thanks
wow.
for tuning in. Juanita Dean says, mighty woman of valor. Jackie Blue says, please share her website and contact information. Okay. Website, where can they reach you, Simmone?
I am on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on LinkedIn as my name, Simmone L. Bowe, middle initial L,
Yeah.
Bowe on all of those platforms. Simmone with two M's. And so you can definitely reach out to me there. You can inbox me. My contacts are actually on my Instagram as well. Most of these platforms, Facebook as well, you can find my contacts and you can reach me. I'm very responsive.
Yeah, she definitely is. Paisley Forbes says, when we can forgive, then we can heal. Naomi says, Simmone, God bless you.
Bless you,
And
sister.
you have helped a lot.
Thank
You've
you.
helped a lot. And that's what she does. So reach out, connect with her in any way. As amazing as a coach as she is, remember, she is also an amazing singer, jazz singer.
Ah,
Yeah, she is. And like
yay.
she's a double threat, y'all, but she really has it going on. I'm proud of her. I'm proud that she's my birthday twin.
My birthday twin.
You know, good stuff. July. Yes, girl.
Woo! July babies rock.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for hanging out with us tonight. This is the place where you can be yourself. You can express yourself with no judgment and no limits. And once again, thank you so much, Simmone, for being a part of our conversation. Until next week, same time, same place. I'm Miranda. Ennis, thanks for tuning in. Have a wonderful week, guys. Good night.
Good night.